great pride in #1 rankings, but not today. A new study showed that Austin, Texas is the #1 city in America in the year-to-year percentage increase in murders, with a percentage increase of more than 64% for the first half of this year. Austin also has a year-to-year increase in the percent rate of aggravated robberies, increasing by 14%, and robberies increasing by 16%. When crime is on the rise, the last thing that we should do is to defund law enforcement. And yet that is exactly what the city of Austin did. Defunding the police puts residents in danger, and it invites lawlessness into our communities. Well, to maintain the safety that our communities deserve, today we are announcing a legislative proposal that will discourage defunding law enforcement agencies in Texas. The way this proposal works is this. Any city that defunds police departments will have its property tax revenue frozen at the current level. They will never be able to increase property tax revenue again if they defund police. Cities that endanger residents by reducing law enforcement should not then be able to turn around and go back and get more property tax dollars from those same residents whose lives the city just endangered. Part of our collective job is to ensure the safety and the security of all Texans. We will not allow that core function to be undermined by cities that seek to defund and to dismantle the law enforcement agencies who have a sworn duty to serve and to protect our communities. We will ensure those communities will continue to be protected by law enforcement officers. Lieutenant Governor Patrick.
Thank you, Governor. We will be ready in the Senate to work on this legislation and make it a priority. When I think about what Austin has done, had any other mayor of any other city in Texas been as irresponsible as they have been, they would have chaos and their citizens would be in danger. It is only because of our DPS force of state troopers, hundreds that came to the aid and rescue of the brave officers at APD, that Austin didn't turn into a potential Seattle or Portland. Hundreds of state troopers, not just protecting the Capitol and the governor's mansion, but protecting the city of Austin. Because not only has Austin defunded their police, but they've taken away vital weapons that they could use to disperse crowds. What they have done in Austin should never happen in any city in the state, and we're going to pass legislation to be sure that it never happens again. And I hope that legislation, in its final form, will roll back what they've done.
Great.
People of Austin and Texas deserve to be protected by their police.
Thank you. Speaker.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Of course, the Texas House will 100% support this legislation. I want to read a couple quotes. Mayor Adler in 2016's office put out a press release that said Austin alone would lose $15 million in 2016 if Senate Bill 2 property tax reform had been in effect. $15 million, he was worried about it. Compare that to the $150 million they're cutting from the police department today. Mayor Adler was quoted as saying, "We should not risk police, firefighting, EMS, parks, safety nets, and transportation projects, all to save Austin homeowners only $2.69 a month. It's risky and not real tax relief." So $15 million was risky to the citizens of Austin in 2016. But $150 million of defunding public safety law enforcement is not in 2020. Mayor Adler has gone on to make quotes as our state should not cap the ability of cities to protect public safety and other critical basic needs. We urge our legislators to protect public safety and other essential city services that are at risk under their proposals. Senate Bill 2 is risky. First responders, services, police, fire, and EMS account for 70% of our city budget. Senate Bill 2 will result in fewer police officers in our communities, longer response time to fire and medical emergencies, and fewer tools and equipment for first responders need to keep our communities safe. So I asked Mayor Adler and the City of Austin why, when it was politically expedient to oppose property tax reform for the citizens that are responsible for keeping safe in Austin in 16, 17, 18, and 19, but why now in 2020 does Mayor Adler support the socialist agenda to cut our police department? It is not okay. It is not acceptable. Law enforcement is not a tool of political agendas. And I would ask the City of Austin to quit using them as one, put them back to work, back on the streets, doing their public service to keep the people of Austin safe. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Senator.
Thank you, Governor. Public safety is, I believe, the most important function of government, and it concerns me greatly to see a city government whose job it is to keep our communities safe take a huge chunk out of a police budget when I think this is a time when we need them the most. Now, I chair our Senate's Finance Committee, but I'm a former chair for 14 years of our Senate's Health and Human Services Committee. And I join those who are calling for funding for mental health and rape crisis centers and domestic violence shelters. Yep. We are, as a state, making huge investments in those items in our state budget. And we'll continue to do that. But you don't have to defund law enforcement to accomplish those objectives. In fact, I have worked for many years in the area of domestic violence, and I can tell you that police officers are often the first on the scene for domestic violence calls when seconds count and it's life or death. And I worry about those victims and about sending social workers and counselors into dangerous situations without law enforcement at their side. It's dangerous, and I don't want to see that happen. It frightens me. The police are there to protect and to serve. Mayor Price and I go way back together, and we're grandmothers now. And we teach our grandchildren to respect
Absolutely.
law enforcement and that they're there to protect and to serve. And it's been very difficult to explain to young children why people are allowed to destroy public property and set fires and riot in the streets, and yet at the same time we see cities turning their backs on police. It's hard to explain to our children. If we defund our police, who will be there to protect us? So these actions, they defy common sense, they're short-sighted, they put lives at risk, and Governor, I'm happy to hear that we're going to address them next session. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Goldman.
Thank you, Governor.
Grandma's Unite.
Thank you, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and Speaker for coming to Fort Worth today. It's quite appropriate, Governor, that you chose this building to come to hold this press conference because it's named after Bob Bolin, an incredible public servant who served this city, was the longest serving mayor until our current mayor, Bob Bolin. So we'll go down in history as our second longest serving mayor, at least currently. But he was all about public service. And he and Chief Wyndham worked together to make our streets safe, very much in the same way that today Mayor Price and Chief Krause are working to make our streets safe here in Fort Worth. And as a result of that, the citizens of Fort Worth just recently appreciated what they're doing so much by reapproving the half-cent sales tax in order to go to help fund our police. That's how much we're doing things right here in Fort Worth. We appreciate the public servants who put on the uniform every single day. We appreciate the public servants who risk their life for our safety every single day. Fort Worth is doing it right. And what we're here saying today is we're not going to let a major city in the state of Texas turn into what Portland is doing, what Seattle is doing, as their police chief recently resigned because she didn't have the backing of the city or the state. Chicago, where they have record police retiring. New York, where the mayor took $1 billion away from the police. What is that doing to the citizens of those cities? Talk to any of them. They don't feel safe. So I look forward to working with all the leaders of the state and in the House and the Senate and crafting legislation to letting all the major cities know that we need and we are here to keep our citizens safe. And that's going to be our #1 priority. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative. You know, you articulated actually one of the reasons why we chose to be in Fort Worth today. And that's because Fort Worth is doing it right.
Yeah.
And it's doing it right because it has a fabulous, tough mayor running this city who is committed to supporting law enforcement, Mayor Betsy Price.
Yes. Thank you, Governor Abbott, and Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and Speaker Bonin, and Senator Nelson, my fellow grandmother and college friend. I guess it's safe to say it's one tough grandmother, as you said that now. You know, we're here today to discuss public safety for our cities, and for me, and for most mayors, public safety is job one in this community. It's not political. It's common sense to keep your citizens safe. And I'm proud to support, along with my council, our men and women in uniform. Fort Worth Police Department is among the finest in the nation. Representative Goldman mentioned our crime control prevention district tax. It passed for 10 years overwhelmingly by 65% of our citizens. That means that our citizens truly do want law and order and public safety. We support the enhanced funding for public safety, for trainings. We do understand the concerns in the community of relationships with our police department. Chief Krause and his team, as well as council, are working on those community relations. But we will not defund our police to solve those issues. We will find sources to help with that. Fort Worth has grown exponentially and is one of the safest big cities in the nation because we provide appropriate resources for our police department. To remove that funding, in my opinion, would be very short-sighted, and truthfully, it would set this city back many years. In a day and age when much is demanded of our police officers and first responders, to take away the resources that they need for their core jobs would be irresponsible of a mayor and council. Furthermore, it's very clear that the majority of our citizens want our police department funded. When they call 911, whether it's domestic violence, child abuse, or a break-in, they want a police officer to show up. We have a HOPE team and a crisis intervention team that also is made up with mental health professionals. But they will get, unless it's a nonviolent call, they'll get a police officer also. So Governor, thank you for helping us ensure, those of us who are working on the front lines every day, that these fine men and women will have what they need.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll take some questions.